Welcome to The More You Know, the Centennial edition. Yes, it was 100 years ago that Richland School District 2 was established. As we look back, we can't really cover every aspect of our history, but we will hear a few short stories that will build a general timeline of the progression through the years. We begin with the recent opening of the Richland II Museum on the grounds of Killian Elementary School. The museum, once called Killian School, was affectionately known as the Little Red Schoolhouse. The building was a donation to Richland II, and we have made it into a museum and community center.
Today we opened the Little Red Schoolhouse, which will serve as a museum of the history of Richland School District 2 in leadership, learning, and legacy. Most importantly, and I quote Dr. Stephen Hefner, the museum will enable our students to learn about the past and prepare them for the future.
As we celebrate 100 years, we honor our past, embrace the present, and boldly look to the future, knowing that the spirit of excellence and the strength of our people will sustain Richland II for another 100 years and beyond.
The Little Red Schoolhouse has survived for over 100 years because people valued it. My hope for our district's future is that we continue to value each other. I hope that 100 years from now, a fifth grader looks back at us in 2026 and says they dreamed big for me.
The schoolhouse is a representation of education the way it was in our district. Open your imagination and listen to Kathy Burris as she reminisces on the way things were.
Well, when it came into existence, I guess, was in the early 1900s. Very different from schools today. The building that is the Little Red Schoolhouse was a one-room schoolhouse, but it could be divided into two. And the one that we know about was it had first, second, and third grade in half, and then fourth, fifth, and sixth in the other half. And they would open the doors to do programs together. And they would start the day with the Pledge of Allegiance. The teacher would work with one group and the other groups would work by themselves, or they would sometimes just go lay on the floor and take a nap on a rug. And they used slates and chalk, and the teacher would be at the board, ask a question, and they would put it on their slates and hold up the slates for the teacher to see that they knew what they were doing. And desks that were neat, that were all one piece, and they would just slide in and have their little opening to put their things in. And they had a potbelly stove, and in some point in time, the kids would bring the coal or whatever went into the potbelly stove from home, and they would, start the fire and keep warm that way. No running water, but they could go get water and bring it. And then outside was the outhouse. They were not very close to the school, the outhouses, for a reason, and they would dig a hole, put the building over it, and then over time, they would cover that hole, move the outhouse to another place, and it was very cold to go out in the wintertime and go to the outhouse, but that was what they were used to. So, some students lived very close and some students lived farther away. Some would walk to school through the woods or along on trails. They would also, at some point, maybe ride a horse to school, and I think the district provided a horse-drawn little wagon that would go by and pick up children. The girls would wear dresses. They would be homemade. They would probably be made from feed sacks, which the people that actually sold those later on, in what we think of a feed sack that would have like an advertisement on it, they would also make into prints that were colorful, but it was still the feed sack that they would make, just like a little shift kind of dress. The boys would wear jeans and overalls, nothing that would appear fancy to us. Students wouldn't start school until after Labor Day, and they would work into the time that it was to be working in the fields. Well, most of the area that we're talking about in Killian was farms, and so they would be working on the farms.
We have to have quite the imagination to see Killian Road as farmland today. Burris was a former teacher in Richland too. Much of the information she shares came from interviews her students in the Alert program did with the former students of the old Killian School. You can learn more about the history of the Little Red Schoolhouse and read more of the interviews the students conducted in the book As We Remember It, Stories and Memories from the Old Killian School. You can get a copy when you visit the Richland II Museum on the campus of Killian Elementary School. It is a book that is fun to read and to share with the students in your life. Get yours soon before copies run out. The story of the Little Red Schoolhouse is a symbol of the start of Richland II's history up to the 1940s and 50s. In our next story, we will meet Frances Riley, a former teacher who started her teaching career in Richland II by being in the right place at the right time. We will also meet a former student, Maddie Squirewell, who attended Bethel School in Blythewood. Bethel School had a principal who was so renowned, she would become the namesake of the school. It is our pleasure to introduce you to two of our oldest living legacies.
And we moved to Blythewood in a little house where Bethel Hanbury School is built there now, but that's where our house was before they tore it down and built the new school. I was promoted to the second grade, and when I started the school at Bethel, and they talked to the students because you're a new student, my grades were that I should be in the third grade. So I never really attended second grade class, even though we had I think it was 4 classes in one room. We didn't have a cafeteria and stuff at that school, so we had to bring our own lunches to school. And the school was warmed by wood stoves, pot-belly stoves. And the children had to go in the woods and get what they call kindling and bring it to put it in the stove to make sure that we stayed warm. And we walked to school. We didn't have buses then. And they didn't have bells to ring like they have in schools now. Miss Hanbury would get on the porch and she would ring a bell with her hand. And I remember Mama would tell us, y'all better get out of here. I hear Miss Hanbury ringing that bell. And of course we lived right across the road from the school. We stayed right out there by the school until I was 9 years old. And then we moved on down below Blythewood here, it's called Sandfield Road. You turn off just below Doco Manor now to go around to where we live. And that's two miles down the road. And we had to walk to school each day. Years later, they built another school, what was the high school then. They made it a high school. Then we had a cafeteria, but we didn't have indoor toilets in the other school. But eventually they had indoor toilets for the children. These later years they had that.
Tell me a little bit more about Miss Hanbury. How do you remember her? Was she real strict?
Yes, she was strict, but she was a real sweet person. She really loved children and she tried to understand children, and she always wanted all the children to succeed.
Are any of your other classmates still living?
No, it was 11 of us that graduated 12th grade, and I'm the last one that's living.
How does that make you feel?
I'm blessed. I'm thankful because I had a good relationship, with my fellow classmates, and I feel that God has me here for a reason.
Well, when I started with Richland too, that's a good story there because I was a senior at Carolina, and Mr. Wright was the superintendent, and he called down there and said his first grade teacher was leaving for Europe on a trip, and she wanted to leave 2 days early. And he asked the dean, did she have a pupil that would come and teach those 2 days? So she picked a country girl to go to the country school because Densel was country then. I mean, there was Main Street, and that was just about it. And so I went out and taught those 2 days at the end of school, and Mr. Wright gave me a ride home, and he said that the Wall Babies would come the next year, and they were going to put on an extra first grade, but I like to be considered for the job. French and English, I went ahead. I got accredited in that, but I had nothing for summer school except 3 courses: public school music, public school art, and public school health. That's what I took and got my elementary certification. In a few weeks, he called and said I'd been selected to come for the first grade. So that was 1944.
When you began to teach children, how many teachers were in the school when you taught?
Oh, there was one for every grade, and I don't know how many in the high school, but they had agriculture, and they had typing and different things in the high school. It was rural school back then, so agriculture was still a big thing.
Were there a lot of students in the school?
My first year started off with 18, and the teacher in the next room had 18. And when we ended up in May, we each had 36. The Wall Babies truly did come. But now, a lot of people thought differently about it. But when you got one new child, you didn't get just one set of action. You got how that child reacted with all the pupils that were already in the room and how those pupils reacted with the new child. But it was not difficult. Back then, they took them right in, and they didn't ostracize a new child.
Was it hard to keep control of classrooms at that time? Were the children good children? Were they hard children to teach?
No, they were just children. They weren't hard to teach, no, they were really good. I thought the manuals for Scott and Bozeman were excellent, and I was so glad when we got a mimeograph machine and we could send home the little sheets to be mimeographed with a new story, but using the new words that they had learned in the book. And that gave them a story they could read at home to the parents and practice at home, but not boring. They didn't have to reread everything. Teaching has just been my life.
So, in 1944, our district as we know it was still mainly land used for agriculture. We will continue our thoughts about legendary educators with our next story. We will hear, testimonies from people that were leaders in molding our modern district. Hudgens, Hefner, Brochu, Ham, Davis, and Gregory sat down with us and gave us a glimpse of the state of the district when they served as superintendent. Listen carefully. We will quickly leave the farmlands of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s as we enter into a new era.
We were a rural school district with one high school. I was superintendent for about 10 years and retired from the district in 1994. I came to District 2 in 1972 as principal of Spring Valley High School, when it was the only high school in the district. We had 35 portable classrooms, and the kids were in the classrooms, and in there it was somewhat of a challenge. Then I was there for a few years, but then we finally convinced the board to build a second high school and built Richland Northeast. And I was the first principal at Richland Northeast. And then I was associate superintendent for 4 years and superintendent for about 10. So I worked 22 years in the district. So if you talk about change from 53 years ago when I was at Spring Valley High School to today when we got 5 large high schools, that's a big change. One of the things that we were proud of at one time when I was superintendent, we had the most blue ribbon schools of any school district our size in the country. You know, to say that you're a good high school in South Carolina is one thing, but to say you're a good high school compared nationally, that's a whole different thing.
The district was growing rapidly in 1994. It had really been growing steadily since the early 70s. In 94, when I became superintendent, we had 13 schools, and we had about 13,000 students. Over the course of the next 16 years, in 2010, when I retired, we had 39 schools and centers and almost 26,000 students. So we more than doubled in the number of students we served, and we really tripled the number of individual school facilities that we had. It was a time of just tremendous growth. One of the most significant things that happened in that era was Fort Jackson. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it more than doubled in size. They went through a BRAC across the country, and several forts were closed and were relocated to Fort Jackson. So it brought in lots of permanent party here into the community.
The population had been changing for a few years prior to my arrival, to the point that I don't think that the community realized just what the transition was. It was interesting because the district had really transitioned to a place that they didn't realize. It was probably a smaller town kind of district, and now it was becoming more global, if you will.
When I came here in 1977, the district office was a little T-shaped building on Brookfield Road. I was at Dent Middle School. That was the first year that Dent was a middle school. There had been Dent and E.L. Wright serving secondary level kids, and one of the interesting things of reflecting back on Dent, it was a middle school. That was a new thing then, and my job was working as a curriculum coordinator for a federal grant that was implementing mastery learning. And I think it's one example of, at least from the beginning of my career, we were still trying to be innovative, still trying to improve everything we did and make sure all students learn. And I think that's been a tradition of the district ever since. It seems like it was just baked in to the district. What I mostly think I felt like was inspired by a team of people though around me who were willing to step out and try something new and put their whole selves into it. You know, one of the biggest changes that I had a part in, I think, was the innovation of adding one-to-one computing. You know, and it grew from a couple of teachers who tried it in their classroom and made a success and just slowly grew. And then I don't think a lot of people know it, but we were the first district in the world to do one-to-one computing with Chromebooks. And at one point in time, we're the largest user in the world of Chromebooks.
I came in at a unique time, I think, in the district. I was the first superintendent to kind of serve in this hybrid role of superintendent-elect. As my predecessor, Dr. Debbie Ham, was transitioning out, she and I worked together for an entire year, and I got an opportunity to learn kind of like on-the-job training as superintendent. That was something that was, I think, an innovative idea from our board at the time, and it really gave me an opportunity to hit the ground running. We began the transition where we were becoming more innovative, far beyond technology, but the innovation of systems. We had a goal of being the premier school district. That was our kind of marching orders. We wanted to be the example of what things and how things should be, not just simply here in South Carolina, but all across the nation. I think we were always known as a great South Carolina district. I wanted to make sure that the country knew that we were a wonderful district. We passed the single largest bond referendum in the state's history of $468 million. I served as superintendent during COVID.
Coming off of COVID, that was an interesting time. And I think that was a very tough time for teachers, for students, for families, for staff. But coming off of that time and still getting back to normal, that was very, very difficult. And I say that it took some time, and it wasn't just a snapback like some people may have thought it would have been. You know, there's some things that we've taken from what we learned during COVID that have really transformed us. Some for the better, some not so. You know, it's forced us to take a closer look at technology and how we're using technology and how much we're using technology. You know, we were so fortunate, and it's been great to watch the state-of-the-art facilities that Richland 2 has. It's hard to compare them to many other districts, and the fact that even the older facilities we have, that our leadership has kept them in such great shape. Again, just always been so fortunate to have great facilities in Richland 2. I think our leaders from 1926 would be amazed at how this district has grown. From the Little Red Schoolhouse to how large it is, how much it has grown, how much they've nurtured that initial vision, and it has grown.
Serving as superintendent of Richland School District 2 has been one of the greatest honors of my life. As the first African American woman to lead this district in its 100-year history, I carry both a deep pride and deep responsibility. I stand on the shoulders of the dedicated leaders who came before me, men and women who poured their hearts into this district and built the strong foundation we continue to grow from. The work we are doing now is not only impacting students today, it is shaping the next 100 years of excellence in this district. Now, this journey is bigger than me. It's about legacy, progress, and the promise we make to every child that we have the privilege to educate. Thank you for joining us for a brief look back at our first 100 years. We have touched on just a small portion of the stories and events that have taken place. I encourage you to keep the conversation going. A visit to the Richland 2 Museum at Killian Elementary School is a great place to start. Please share your stories with one another It helps us all to know where we came from as we navigate where we are going. Until next time, take pride in knowing that we are Richland School District 2, and we are purpose-driven, so our students will be future ready.